Okay. Okay. So on the first one, the easy, if 0.2p equals 4, then what is 4p equal to? This one is easiest either to just plug in the answer choices. Actually, no, you can't plug in the answer choices because we're not looking for p, we're looking for 4p. The easiest way to do this one is probably just to find p. So if you do 4 divided by 0.2 in your calculator, you'll get 20. So p is 20. So then 4p, remember that's the tricky part of this one, is you're not looking for p, you're looking for 4p. So the answer here would be 80. Did y'all get that one? Okay. For positive integers y and z, if z squared equals y cubed and y squared equals 16, then y over z equals what? Well, you can work backwards and actually find y and z here. If y squared is 16, then what's y? 4. And then z squared is equal to y cubed. Well, we know that y was 4. So 4 cubed is 64. So what's z? 8. So 4 over 8 is 0.5. Right. Y over z, 4 over 8 is 0.5. And then the last one, this is really more about fractions than it is about decimals. But remember, when you're dividing two fractions, it's keep it, so keep the top fraction, 80 over BC, change it to multiplication, flip it, BD over AC. You can cancel any factors that are common to top and bottom, and they don't have to be top and bottom in the same fraction. So for example, A and A can cancel out. B and B can cancel out. So on the top you end up with D times D, which is D squared. On the bottom you end up with C times C, which is C squared. So this is D. Okay. So we have one more topic to cover in this section, Arithmetic Day 1, and that is percentages. Okay, so a percent is simply a fractional part. A percent problem is really a fraction problem. Since percents are an expression of a fractional part, they do not represent actual numbers. What that means is that 15% is not always equal. It depends on what you're taking 15% of. If it's 15% of the same thing or the same number, then those are equal. But if otherwise it's not. 15% does not always equal the same thing. It depends on what you're taking a part of. Okay, so to convert percents to decimals or decimals to percents, I remember Dr. Pepper. I love Dr. Pepper. So of me doing it this way. Yeah. So DP, Dr. Pepper, and what this is to show you is there's two letters there. So you're going to be moving the decimal place 2 spaces. The Dr. Pepper is so that you can remember which direction to move it depending on what you're doing. If I'm going from a decimal to a percent, so I'm going D to P, then I move my decimal 2 to the right. Okay. So to convert a decimal to a percent, move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. Right, so D to P, you would move 2 to the right. If I want to convert from a percent to a decimal, I move my decimal 2 to the left because I'm going from P to D. It's always 2 spaces. There's 2 letters there. It's always 2 spaces, but which direction? D to P, decimal to percent, you go to the right. P to D, percent to decimal, you go to the left. So the examples here are 50%. If I want to change that to a decimal, the decimal is understood to be after the 0. I'm going from a percent to a decimal, so I move 2 to the left. So 1, 2, that's going to put the decimal in front of the 5. 4%, again the decimal is understood to be after the 4. So if I move it 2 to the left, if you move the decimal and there's no number there, you fill that space with a 0. So this becomes 0.04. 0.03%. Here's the decimal in front of this 0. I move it 2 to the left. I've got to fill both of those spots with zeros. So 0.0003. And if your percent is greater than 100%, you're going to get a number greater than 1. Most percents are less than 1, they're decimals. But if you have a percentage that's greater than 100%, then when you move the decimal 2 to the left, you're going to get a number that's greater than 1. And that's okay. So that's that's percent to decimal, so 2 to the left. Now if you want to go decimal to percent, so for example 0.5, what percent is that? Then I take the decimal and I move it 2 to the right. And again, fill any spaces with zeros. 0.66, 2 to the right, that's 66%. 0.01, 2 to the right, that's 1%. If it's a number greater than 1, then when you move the percent to the, when you move the decimal to the right, you're going to get a percent that's greater than 100%. 100% is the same as 1 when you put it as a decimal. So 4 is going to be a lot more than 100% because 4 is a lot more than 1. If you take the decimal, which remember is understood right now to be after the 4, and you move it 2 to the right, you got to fill that with 2 zeros. That's 400%. If you want to convert a percent to a fraction, just put it over 100. Remember that percent comes from per 100. Cent means 100. So this is out of 100. That's what percent means. So 50% means 50 out of 100. 4% means 4 out of 100. 106% means 106 out of 100. X% means X out of 100. Okay, so if it's a percent and you want to make it a fraction, put it over 100. Okay, does that make sense? So remember Dr. Pepper, decimals and percents. It's going to help you remember which direction to move your decimals. So to solve a problem involving percentages, some of you may have learned is over of equals percent over 100. If that's what you use, that's fine. If you learned part over whole equals part over whole, that's fine. If you learned to solve these with proportions, that's fine. You can continue to do that way. I'm going to show you how I learned to solve percent problems and how this book that I like suggests that you solve them. So, to solve a problem that involves percentages, use the following translations to create an equation. What? When you see the word what, that's about to tell you what you're going to be looking for or what your x is going to be. Is means equal sign. Where you see the word is, you put an equal sign. Percent means out of 100, so whatever percent they give you, you're going to put that over 100. And of means to multiply. So for example, what is? That means x equals. What is 50%? That means 50 out of 100. Of means multiply. 16. So that's showing me how to find x. What is what I'm looking for. Is equals 50% means 50 out of 100. Of means multiply 16. So I would just type in my calculator 50 divided by 100 times 16. And I should get 8. Right. Where this method is really useful is on a problem like the next one. where you've got multiple percents going on. If you use the is over of equals percent over 100, you have to do that multiple times if you have multiple percents. Whereas this method, you just write one long equation. So this is what is, so x equals, what is 10%, 10 out of 100, of, multiply, 40%, 40 out of 100, of, multiply, 22. So I would just type in my calculator, 10 divided by 100 times 40 divided by 100 times 22. What do you get? 0.88. All right, so the next one, what percent? So what percent means x, percent means over 100. So what percent of 16 times 16 is equals 8. So how would I solve for x here? What would I need to do first?
Get the variable by itself.
I want to get the variable by itself. So how do I do that? What do I do first?
Multiply 100.
You could multiply both sides by 100. So then you would have x times 16 equals 800. And then divide by 16. And what do you get? 50? 50%. All right, last one. 6 equals what percent? So x out of 100. What percent? Of means to multiply, 30. 6 equals x over 100 times 30. You just got to translate the words into what they mean. So again, we can work this one the exact same way we just worked this one. You could get rid of the 30 first by dividing, or you can get rid of the 100 first by multiplying. I would multiply first. All right, to get rid of divide 100, you times 100. So that gives me 600 equals 30x. And then I divide both sides by 30. So it would be 20%. Does that make sense? So if you'll learn these words and their translations, that's how I learned percent problems when I was in school, and it always works. It works really nice, but even if you have multiple percents in a problem, if you'll learn the translations, it makes the problems much easier. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do today is the percents quick quiz, which is quick quiz number 5. So I'll give you all about 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll go over those.